Everyone, and welcome to the Metro Outer Development Assessment Panel for Thursday the 8th of December. I declare the meeting open at 9:32, and in doing so I acknowledge we are hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respects to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2025 and DAP Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I'll now introduce the panel members. My name is Karen Hyde. I am the presiding member. To my left in the room, Tony Arias, Deputy Presiding Member. Further to my left in the room, Dr. Agatha Kabanek, Specialist Member. And on screen, we welcome Councillor Rod Henderson and Councillor Jennifer Catalano, our panel members from the City of Swan. Item 2, we have no apologies. Item 3, noting of minutes. Panel notes the minutes of previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Turning to part B of our agenda, at item 1, declarations of due consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda and Part B related information. Could I see a show of hands to show that they've duly considered all material? Thank you. Thank you. That's unanimous. Next, we look to disclosures of interest. Could I please check with our local government DAP members whether the application has been before you at a meeting or a briefing?
Not to my knowledge, unless the city knows otherwise. I don't recall it.
No. Okay, thank you for that. Any other panel members with a declaration? No? Okay, thank you. We will move on then to our item 3, Form 1 DAP application for Lot 10, number 236 to 244, Great Eastern Highway Midland, which is use and development of the site for a 7-Eleven service station. We have 2 presenters today, Benham Baldbar from TransCore and Mark Ray from Planning Solutions, both in support of the application and both in person in the room. What I propose is that we hear from both of them and then we open up for questions. So, Benham, you're first on my list, or Mark, did you want to go first?
Just for a little bit.
Okay, so Mark Ray from Planning Solutions will go first, followed by Benham from TransCore. And you have 3 minutes, so I'll let you know when you get to that point.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Good morning, panel members. I am joined by Benham Baldbar, Traffic Engineer from TransCore. The recommendation presented in the City's RAR is specifically due to procedural aspects associated with the MRS instrument of delegation and not the planning merits of this proposal. The crux of the issue is the lane correct movement of the fuel tanker. Given the nature of this issue, I'll hand over shortly to Benham to present on the tanker swept path and traffic engineering considerations. As demonstrated in the City's RAR, the proposal is consistent with the objectives and design intent of the Midland Activity Centre Structure Plan and the relevant planning framework. We work closely with the City and DRP to elevate and improve the design outcome and have appropriate regard to the context and character of the locality. The City has presented an alternative recommendation for approval. We support this recommendation and request the panel approve the application, however, do request the deletion of condition 18. As Benham will talk to, it is our view that the upgrades to the intersection as required by condition 18 are not necessary and will compromise the design outcome achieved through collaboration with the City and DRP. From a planning and context perspective, the development site is appropriately located to allow fuel deliveries to occur outside of the road peak network and peak operating times of the shopping centre. Fuel deliveries outside of peak hours is a standard industry management approach for service station developments and will mitigate the perceived safety risks suggested by main roads. The City's proposed condition 21 requires a delivery management plan to guide and enforce fuel deliveries. We accept this condition as it will provide certainty regarding the safe and effective management of fuel deliveries and swept path movements onto the site. Thank you. Over to Ben.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. I have prepared a written submission And also I have prepared 2 technical notes, which were in the RAR dealing with comments raised by Main Road and condition 18 that Mark mentioned. If I may, I just want to talk about some important points. First of all, regarding Main Road's position, if we peel away some of the layers and drill down into the bottom of the matter, it appears to us that there is an attempt to use this development and this developer to upgrade the intersection to a standard that it should already be. And I'll explain that. Evidence for that is the assessment that Main Road have done. And that assessment is not based on the 17-meter fuel tanker that we propose. That assessment is based on 19-meter as of right vehicle. Now, arguably, the intersections along a primary regional road should already accommodate as of right vehicle. This intersection doesn't. And as I said, it appears to me that there is an attempt to bring that intersection to the standard, not for us, for others. And therefore, their position has absolutely no relevance to this development. So that's what I wanted to say with regard to Main Road, and I'll come back to another key point when I talk about now condition 18. I think the matters to consider first is the legality of it, and I have been in front of that panels many times, and I have explained that Traffic Code 2000 cannot be any clearer that the larger vehicle that the code defines as vehicles bigger than 7.5 meters are permitted to turn lane correct at intersection. There is a good reason for it, because we otherwise end up very wide intersections, very wide crossovers, land impact on pedestrian amenity, safety concerns, because lighter vehicles can obviously negotiate those intersections at much higher speed if they are very wide. So legally, fuel tankers are permitted to turn lane incorrectly at the intersection. Second of all is, as briefly mentioned by Mark, is on average, the fuel tanker visitation is probably around twice per week, and often always they are cleared late at night, and we are in a shopping center environment. So on this side, they definitely will occur late at night and early hours of morning to minimize any conflict with the service station customers, shopping center customers, etc.
You're at 3 minutes, so if you could draw to a close.
Sure, I'm pinching Mark's.
Well, that's not generally the way we run. He had 3 and you had 3. He was less, but you still got 3.
Sure, I'll just make a couple of important points. In terms of practicality and practice, those lane correct movements occurs every day by every single transport bus at the intersection, by other service vehicles, by council's own waste collection trucks in residential areas. So it's nothing unusual. And I want to make one last point, if I may.
Okay.
If we have a look, and I mentioned it in my written submission, I think it's page 6 of Main Road's own conferral letter, the term path that they have undertaken to justify upgrade is lane incorrect. So it cannot be any more evident that that's okay. That can happen.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all I had to say.
Thank you very much. I'll refer to the panel now for questions. First, Councillor Catalano, did you have questions? Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, sorry, from your diagrams and maps and things, I didn't really understand how the traffic was going to get into the service station, because obviously it wasn't going to enter and exit onto Great Eastern Highway with it being so close to the lights. So I assume then it was going to go up that little side street, which isn't really a street. It's more like a sort of an egress to the car park. And then was the traffic supposed to then, using the service station and the tankers and the whole lot, was it then supposed to, was the other way in and out, is that also on the northern side coming in from Lloyd Street?
That is possible. It is, difficult to establish exactly how many vehicles come from where, but we believe that the majority of traffic, because of the visibility of the service station, come in and out of Brookman. And this is that normal general traffic. And of course, service stations, about 70% of the traffic is passing traffic. So the traffic which is already on Great Eastern Highway in the eastbound direction largely, and they can see the service station and pull in and get fuel. But yes, there is a possibility that some other traffic will access the service station along other routes.
Yeah, well, I was wondering about that because I was just down there the other day, in fact, and there's a pedestrian crossing coming out of the shopping centre along that road. So, I mean, it'd be very congested to be able to use that as an entry point. So, really, you're saying there's one entry and exit point on Brockman. Is that it?
No, the service station is within the car park.
Yeah, I know where the service station is. I just couldn't figure out how vehicles, including the tankers and all the other vehicles, how they were going to basically get in and out of this site. Given that it's basically a site for vehicles, isn't it? I mean, it's all about vehicles. So, I just didn't really understand because, so you're just talking about you're just talking about drivers driving east who can actually make a left-hand turn into Brockman. Is that who this is going to service, those people? Because I don't understand how, if you're going west from that set of traffic lights, how you could actually turn in across that eastbound traffic on Great Eastern Highway to get into Brockman. It just, I didn't quite understand it, how you're going to manage that, how that was going to work.
So there's a couple of parts to that question.
Yeah.
The first one is that you can access the service station in a westbound direction on Great Eastern Highway because there's a right-hand turn pocket that goes into Brockman Road. Yeah,
I know, but you'd have to cut across the two lanes of Great Eastern Highway.
Yeah, you'd have to turn right.
Cut across.
Yeah,
which is, I mean, it's just not very far from an intersection, correct? It's a very busy intersection. The Lloyd Street, Great Eastern Highway intersection is very busy.
Yep, we don't necessarily dispute that. That right turn pocket has been constructed and designed in a manner to accommodate a number of vehicles that want to turn right into Brockman Road.
Okay.
Yeah. So putting aside that, so we would expect that because this is on the left-hand side of the road, it's more of a convenient offering for people that are travelling east. That is how we expect most of the customers to access the site via Brockman Road and the existing full movement crossover that's halfway up Brockman Road. There are two other possible ways that you can access this site. Brockman Road does stop at the shopping centre further north. That's an access point to the shopping centre as well and to our site. And then you've got Lloyd Street as well. So this particular land use we find is effective on a shopping centre because of the reciprocal trade. So it is convenient for those people on the road, but it's also convenient for the people that access the shopping centre to do a shop or go to a fast food outlet or anything like that. So there is the ability to access the site through those other points as well.
Can I ask you a question then? Do you know of any other service station on a major highway within what is it? Probably would be 50 meters of a set of very busy traffic lights. Do you know of another service station within a shopping centre context, within 50 meters of a set of traffic lights on a very busy highway? Name me one.
No. There are.
No.
Well, first of all, I think there are two parts to your question. There are many service stations on major roads located either close to or at the signalized intersection. There are a number of service stations on Great Eastern Highway in Ascot that we've been involved with, which fit that category, are either very close to the signalized intersection or at the corner of the signalized intersection. In terms of shopping center, the Carousel Shopping Center, there is a Caltex or Ampol, maybe it's called now, which is right at the corner of the signalized intersection of the entrance to the shopping center. Now, that particular service station also has two crossover on Albany Highway. We've been involved with nearly 200 service station developments in recent years, and always, for obvious reasons, service station want to be on major road, on the busy road, because of the traffic and because of the fact that the vast majority of the service station traffic is from passing trade. Now, if I may just also make a point about your earlier question about the westbound traffic that wishes to access the service station. What we believe is that, and based on our experience, that service station access is based on convenience because there are quite a few of them around. And what we found that people don't usually make a right turn from a major road into Brookman, they make another right turn into the shopping center driveway, then get into the shopping center and make all those movements to get out, notwithstanding that at Brookman intersection, you cannot turn right. So vehicles cannot turn right back onto Great Eastern Highway. So that traffic will have to go and find its way. So we think that the amount of westbound traffic that wants to access the service station is very few. The service station feasibility studies always rely on traffic which is on the same side of the service station, again, because of that convenience factor that I mentioned earlier.
Any further questions, Councillor Catalano?
No, but I do want to just mention that this is a unique site, and it actually is not.
Is that a question, Councillor?
No, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
That's fine.
thank you. Councillor Henderson, did you have questions?
Yes, please, if I may. Okay, I've got a few questions. Just to note that I've driven many trucks for many thousands of miles, so I know just exactly how they handle and how they perform, and I've seen how bad drivers can do the wrong thing and make simple mistakes. So sorry about the statement, Chairman, but I thought of the context. You did say that waste collection trucks met turning circle requirements. Well, they're only 11 metres, so I'll discount that statement that you made. The issue I have is that when you look at the TIA report and you look at the detail of access, particularly off Brockman into the site, it is extremely tight with a 17.5 metre vehicle to the point where it would appear to me as though curbing either side of the road would be impacted by poor driving. And obviously that would come at a cost to the city. So
I'm just wondering about your question, Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I just about to ask that question. Thank you, Chair. And the question is, would the operators of the site be prepared to pay for those repairs?
If I may, first of all, I think this site is earmarked for 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven use toll fleet of tankers and trucks to deliver fuel to all their sites in not only metropolitan area but also outside it. They are very, very experienced drivers. Each driver will have a manifest which will quite clearly explain the details of a particular site, the constraints, the opportunities, how and when they should access the site. I have personally videoed many of these movements to just check how the movements will occur. So I don't think that with this site we're going to have unexperienced fuel tanker drivers. These are the guys who do that every single day of the week. Whether they be actually cause any damage to the infrastructure, I personally doubt it, Councillor Henderson, because some of the video testing that we have done, that includes drone testings of many fuel tankers accessing the site, what that testing has shown that the actual movements of the tanker is far easier than what the simulation modeling suggests. So basically the simulation modeling is designed to be conservative, and in real life the tankers would be able to turn in and out of that intersection a lot easier than what the simulation shows.
Thank you. Yeah, well,
Further questions?
I do,
Councillor
yes.
Henderson?
I don't necessarily follow the response. Longer term, what is your expectation? And by longer term, I'm talking long term, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. What is the expectation that 17.5 metre tankers would be viable and might be discontinued?
Well, first of all, that would be a condition of approval. That's what is proposed.
That wasn't the question.
If there is any changes, then that change needs to be applied and approved with. So I can't tell you that what the scenario would be in 20, 30 years time. Whether service stations as a whole are viable, I don't know, nobody knows. But certainly within the time of the approval, that's what is proposed to be used.
Well, did you have anything you wished to add to that?
Yes, so condition 21 specifically mentions the 17.25 metre tanker. So in the scenario you mentioned, if we needed a larger tanker or a smaller tanker, my understanding would be that we need to amend that condition through an approval process with the city. So at that point, it couldn't be assessed and considered.
Further questions, Councillor Henderson?
There's lots of questions. Yes, about the car park, if I may.
Yes.
Okay. Now, can I ask why the car parking assessment was done at a particular time of the year it was done rather than what I'll call a peak time of the year?
My understanding, and Ben, you can jump in, so Transcore wasn't responsible for doing the parking occupancy survey for this particular project, but they've done many before. My understanding is that you do it outside of school holidays and outside of Christmas peak, because that's not reflective of the standard situation. I think Benham can talk to this in a bit more. Any shopping centre at Christmas time has overflows and parking issues. We can all observe that in a personal situation. So that's the standard methodology applied to it. Did you want to extend on that?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. In fact, the authorities expect us to provide traffic surveys and parking surveys during the peak condition times, because those peak condition times, as Mark mentioned, are not representative. Similarly, if there is a new shopping center development, the parking demand and supply of the shopping center is not based on the absolute peak of that shopping center. It's based on the typical peak of the shopping center. And also based on the point that Mark made, I would like to add that the shopping patterns have changed over the last 10 years with the availability of online shopping. Less and less people actually physically drive to a shop and do shop, particularly if they know that it's going to be peak times and parkings are going to be limited. It doesn't mean that during the peak time shopping center are not going to be busy, and there might be areas of the shopping center that parking is highly utilized. But generally speaking, no assessment is done during the absolute peak parking demand.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Henderson? I can come back to you.
Sufficient. Thank you for the moment.
Thank you. Panel members in the room. Member Arias, did you have questions?
Yes, I've got a few planning questions and then perhaps some traffic related. So the first one relates to the recommendation we have before us, and I think you made a comment about procedural matter under the region scheme. Do you have any further comments about the conclusion in the RAR as to why the recommendation is what it is?
Are you talking about the refusal as
Yes.
opposed to the alternate?
Yes.
I think the city has undertaken a correct assessment based under the Metropolitan Region Scheme. I suppose the frustration from our end is that the recommendation is a consequence of non-support from Main Roads. During the application process, Main Roads have had 2 referrals. They provided one in their standard assessment period that we made substantial modifications, a revised TIA, we reduced. So we initially proposed a 19-metre semi, then we reduced that to address that issue specifically. That information was provided to Main Roads. The referral that came back had a lack of certainty and issues that we felt had been addressed. You can ask the city. I understand that's the city's view of those proceedings, but the city was in a position under the timing to either proceed with the recommendation they have or possibly take up more time and months sending it to DPLH for a dual referral under the MRS. So in consultation with the city, our preference was to have a decision on this.
Okay, thank you. So the next question related, and I'll pose a similar question to the city's officers about the context of the shopping centre and the service station, and which leads into traffic management. So it's obviously part of the Midland Regional Centre, and the site's part of the shopping centre. From a planning perspective, what's happening there at the moment? What's the planning for the future in terms of how that area is intended to develop?
The shopping centre went a pretty significant redevelopment through the previous owner vicinity. I'm going to say 10 years ago, could have been sooner. That built out the centre to Cale Street. If you're familiar with the activity centre plan, Cale Street on the western side of the centre is the built out main street. So that was delivered as part of that upgrade, I understand, and then several refurbishments and minor additions and extensions. So the short to medium term is actually just providing more convenience through these pad developments. In March, we received an approval for a GYG, and now the 7-Eleven. I think there is some contemplation of other uses along the highway frontage of the centre, but naturally the uses that we're proposing, approval of the GYG and the service station, are on the highway frontage. So in our view, they're appropriately located to capture that convenience, but also have a reciprocal trade for the shopping centre.
Okay. All right. probably related, and this may be a question from Mr. Boardbar as well. The access to the site is off Great Eastern Highway. Now, it is a highway, it is a main road, classified road, but it is also within the regional centre. And I just, whether there's some, not confusion, but misconception about what the function of that is. Main roads clearly see it as a highway, but it's within the regional centre, and typically roads within a city centre, which is what it is, have a different function, and there's different perception about traffic movement, congestion, those sort of issues. So perhaps question to both of you.
I might just start from a planning perspective. So I mentioned Cale Street. I think the structure plan was designed to have regard to the fact that it is a highway and it does carry significant volumes of traffic. So Cale Road had been designed as that main street to kind of provide that separation from the highway. I can't dispute the fact that it is a highway and does carry traffic. But for us, it's more about, well, what are the types of land uses that are appropriate on a highway? And we would say in the context of a service station, it's gathering a lot of traffic that's already on the highway as opposed to bringing in new traffic based on the land use.
Okay. I think that's absolutely right. There has been a change in planning as well as transport function to ensure that the highways which are through town centres or through regional centres quite clearly perform that dual function and not just that one function. And that's evident from a range of regional centres when the traffic speed has been reduced, and as Mark mentioned, developments are created quite close to intersection and quite close to the highway as well. So I would say that over the last 10, 15 years, there has been move towards that, and main roads have been party to that. And a lot of town centres, Byford, Harvey, etc., you can see that there are 40 km/h speed limits on the major highway. That's in recognition of that dual purpose that you've mentioned. So more and more, the planning and transport function is shifting in that way to deliver that dual purpose properly.
Thank you. Presiding, I do have a couple of
probably
more traffic related questions. The first one, in terms of main roads position, to me there seems to be two issues, and I'll tackle the second one about pedestrian safety. Now, in the TIA, pedestrian safety isn't addressed as a potential issue.
Do you want that as your first question?
Sorry?
Do you want that as your first question?
Yes, and just the question was around pedestrian safety and your view about whether there is a view around pedestrian safety.
I might answer that from a planning perspective, if that's okay. So the first plan that we presented to a pre-lodgement DRP involved a different layout. It involved the canopy before the building, which is more of a conventional service station layout you might see on a highway. Through the DRP feedback, it was very clear that they wanted to see more of an urban outcome, and that was having a building on the street boundary. So we made those changes. We've updated the design and worked with the city and the DRP on that. That does bring the entrance closer to the street boundary and the pedestrian footpath. There was an issue that came up late in the DRP process around having the entry right on the street boundary, giving the width of the crossover at that intersection. So what we did in consultation with the city was actually shift the entire building back 1.5 metres. So that might not be reflected in Main Road's comments, but from our perspective, it has been satisfactorily addressed.
Okay. Yeah, that was the only point which was raised, as Mark mentioned, specifically in the first referral comment, and that point has been addressed through the interaction with the DRP.
You know, I understand the point about moving the building back. I just with Main Road's position, not simply that, but it's also about left turning movements from the west, where Main Road's view was that the sweat paths weren't appropriate. And was that a potential point of conflict? Because it wasn't clear in their submission.
So that wasn't an issue relevant to pedestrian safety. That was just the traffic operational potential safety issues. And they said that left turn has to occur lane correctly, which of course it needs significant modification and further land take. Now, I'll go back again. The experts, if we accept the law enforcement and police be the expert in that area, and the traffic code 2000 and the latest version in 2025, March 25, I believe, that is the guide that everybody has, that what creates the environment to judge safety. That quite clearly allows the large vehicles to turn lane incorrectly. Now, there are circumstances that you do need to ensure lane incorrect movements occur. But in my view and in Mark's view, that regional centers and city centers are not one of those, because as I said, it does create a very, very wide intersections, very, very wide crossovers. It has impact on lands and buildings. It has impact on pedestrians. The crossing point becomes much longer. Light vehicles can turn left much faster than they normally do if it's a tight intersection. So there is horses for courses. Regional centers, city centers are not an environment to create lane correct movements.
And probably final question about it. Clearly your view, and that's reflected in the technical notes, is that a 17.25, I think it is, fuel tanker can turn left. And I think earlier on you said it's a conservative sweat path. So if you can just explain why you believe it's conservative in terms of that pedestrian safety and I guess getting across without going too slowly.
Sure. Almost without exception, where we are faced with a condition or a situation rather than condition that we do need to make modifications, upgrade because of large vehicles turning. Not so much purely the cost of it, but the time of it. The design process with Main Road is very lengthy, very time consuming, 12, 18 months it can often take. Often we and the developers and all parties concerned want to know exactly if those upgrades are required. So we do the trial that I mentioned earlier to Councillor Henderson, that we use drones and get tankers or large vehicles to make those turns at the intersections that the sweat path analysis has shown that some modifications are needed. Almost without exception, the tankers would turn very comfortably when we did the tests. And some of those involved main roads, and it was on Albany Highway in Kennington recently. It was another 7-Eleven. And everybody wants to view those videos, and there was tall tankers accepted that the tanker can turn very comfortably at the intersection and no modifications are needed. So the computer simulation modeling is very conservative.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Cabinet, do you have questions? Okay, I just have one. Is the applicant for this also the landowner of the land on both sides of this intersection that might be required under Main Road's proposal? I think in your swept path analysis, Ben, you showed land take areas. Who owns those parcels of?
So we're acting on behalf of the shopping centre owner. They own the shopping centre, but the land predominantly to the east of Brockman Road. The land on the western side of Brockman Road is a separate freehold lot, not the same ownership.
Yeah.
There's no control from our client over that piece of land.
Okay, thank you. And are you aware, I mean, not prejudicing any decision at this point, but were you to gain an approval under the planning framework, are there other approvals that you would still require from Main Road specifically beyond this point?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further questions of the presenters?
Yes, if I can. There was one other thing that cropped up. I think it was said earlier that the road traffic studies were done based on a 50km/h speed limit. My understanding is Great North Eastern Highway is 60. Is that correct? And does that impact any of the results?
Don't think that was mentioned.
Did you have a reference for the 50km/h as?
Oh, the reference was, I'm pretty sure I heard that in discussion from the applicants during one of the questions being answered.
No, what I was referring to, Councillor Henderson, it was elsewhere in town centres where the speed limits on highways have been reduced to 40km/h.
But your analysis in response to Councillor Henderson's question, your analysis has
speed
been
limit.
based on the current speed limit,
Correct.
Great Eastern Highway.
Correct.
Does that assist you, Councillor Henderson? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, with no further questions of the presenters then, we refer to the city officers. And in my notes, we have Darcy Gibson, Gabby Popovsky and David Tomkin with us today from the City of Swan. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Lovely, thank you. Did you want to make any comment prior to questions, or are you happy to go straight to questions from the panel members?
I'm happy to go straight to questions.
Very good, thank you. We'll go round as we were before then. Councillor Catalano, did you have questions of the city officers? No? Thank you. Councillor Henderson, did you have questions of the city officers? No. Okay, in the room. Member Arias, questions?
Yes, thank you. I raised the issue of public safety with pedestrian safety. The RAR concludes, I think, that in the view of the officers, that's not an issue. Can you just sort of clarify that?
Sure. So obviously excuse me, we have an echo. Can you mute that? The output so I don't get an echo. Excellent. Sorry about that. The design review process did have that as a major consideration when pushing the building to the corner, specifically with respect to the verge component along that portion of the road. That is the only element where safety was considered a paramount issue. The specifically with respect to the outgoing trucks, when they're on Brockman Road leading into the Great Eastern Highway bypass road reserve, any turning circles that might come close to that verge component where people will be standing, because that is where the pedestrian exit for the 7-Eleven is. The reason for condition 18 that was recommended as part of the alternative recommendation is to allow an opportunity to revise the plans to move the building slightly to eastward, just to allow for a greater buffer and ensure a greater amount of space that pedestrians are able to utilise to sort of ensure the safety that was identified as potentially an issue.
Okay. Presiding member, if
Yes,
I can,
another question.
Sorry, my understanding that condition 18 in the alternative was more about the swept path. You're saying that it's also potentially dealing with pedestrian safety.
So condition 18 was a condition that was drafted by the city's engineering staff with the intention to allow for a revision of the curb line that is the city's land, and to then allow for the turning circles of the heavy vehicles to be lane correct.
Yeah.
No, okay, thank you.
Do you have further clarity that you required from that?
Just while we're talking about condition 18, I think the applicant at some point raised the legal validity of the condition, given the applicant's not in control of the land. Do you have any comments about that?
No, I don't have a comment about that. Simply put, the element of land that would need revision is a city asset. It's one that has been discussed with city staff, and this condition was drafted by our engineering team.
Okay.
Member Cabinet, any questions? Okay, thank you. I have a question of the city. The city's initial assessment of the TIA and associated modelling and so forth was stated to be that it was satisfactory, and then obviously opinions changed upon receipt of Main Road's comments. Can you elaborate on why those opinions changed, please?
The initial review or the initial referral to our traffic staff was with respect to the TIA as well as the traffic demand assessment. As part of reviewing both of those documents, the issues surrounding the turning circles were not raised as part of that. However, when Main Roads had provided their second response, I consulted with our traffic team again, and they agreed with the findings of Main Roads, hence the imposition of condition 18. Their belief was that this was not a fatal flaw of the proposal, but something that could be remedied through a condition of approval.
Right. So just to pursue you on that, it's not a fatal flaw of this proposal. Does the city accept that there is an as of right to make these manoeuvres within the road configuration as it currently exists, and that potentially other users within the centre with vehicles of this scale servicing them, or potentially up to 19 metres, may be using this intersection?
Sorry, I don't quite understand the question.
Is it the city's contention that this intersection is used solely by this applicant and therefore these works are required by this applicant? Or would the city accept that other users of this centre utilise vehicles of this scale or larger at this intersection, and therefore it has a more there is more traffic accessing this intersection of a larger scale than just this applicant, or has a variety to? Yes.
Yes. So it was always the understanding that this is, of course, a public access point to the shopping centre at large. It is not exclusively for the applicant. The potential for, as of right, 19-metre long vehicles is, I think, further justification to impose condition 18 and allow the city to shave off the curbs and allow for greater turning circles, or easier turning circles, sorry.
However, the way that condition 18 is worded would appear to be exclusively to this development. As it reads, the intersection is to be fully constructed at the applicant's cost. So forgive me for pursuing this a little bit further, but we seem to be saying, yes, we understand other vehicles and other users within the centre are as of right using this intersection. However, it's an opportunity to modify it, and therefore this applicant should modify it. The intersection is to be fully constructed at the applicant's cost. That's what this condition is saying.
Yes.
Why would it all fall to the cost of this applicant when others are using this intersection?
As I understand it, there are no current businesses using that entrance that would require 19-meter long vehicles. But look, I acknowledge your point with respect to pushing the cost of upgrades onto the applicant when it is not solely the applicant that will be using it.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other questions of the officers? All right, thank you very much to the city officers for responding to our questions. We'll now move ahead with the item before us, and we'll take it in the order that the RAR is presented. And in the first instance, we are asked to accept the application as being compatible with the objectives of the zoning table of the Swan planning scheme, and to refuse it for the reason under the instrument of delegation. Is there a mover, please, for that as the primary motion?
To refuse?
Yes.
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Is there a seconder, please, for that motion? There is no seconder. Sorry, councillor Catalano, got your hand up. Thank you. That's seconded by councillor Catalano. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion as mover?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So just to start off on page 1, it would be lovely to have the $2.2 billion spent in Midland, but just a small technical area there. I don't believe for a moment that the safety aspects have been completely considered. Great Eastern Highway is relatively narrow, 4 lanes. It gets very congested. As time goes by, it will be even worse, and that intersection will be even more congested. We haven't taken into consideration the fact that we may see 24-hour trading in the future. We haven't taken into consideration that transport industry may not be able to justifiably afford 7.5-metre transport vehicles and require 19 as an example. So in fact, once approved, we're going to see the fundamental, and that is, well, you got an approval and you're stuck with it. And of course, the community and the city would be stuck with all the respective impacts. So I think some of the aspects within the TIA, I have some contention with. I don't necessarily believe that they are, I'll use the term valid, because we're going to see transport industry drivers that won't necessarily be 100% perfect. So I think the other aspect is that car parking at that place is already constrained, and I'll say that with experience. I've been there all times of the year when it's a busy time, and certainly the available space is limited. And also remember that the original lot has had other developments put on it, which have taken up more and more car parking space. The other thing is that Lloyd Street intersection will be upgraded in the future, making a tighter availability of land and more congestion. So in other words, I don't believe there's a lot of surety in all aspects of this site for the future. Once approved, it's approved. So given the constraints and given the concerns from Main Roads and the city, I can't support this. So I'd urge others to have a good look at the longer term considerations rather than just now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Castellano is seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Can I just ask a question first? Sorry, this is an objection, or it's no, based on is it the jurisdiction of the MODAP, or is that what you is? Sorry, I'm just a little bit confused about from what you said as to what we're actually discussing right here.
Okay, let me try and
Thank you for
assist.
that. Thanks for elaborating on that.
Yes, let me assist you. I'm taking the RAR as
Yes.
it's presented, and on page 2 of the RAR, the
Yes,
responsible authority recommendation is that
yes,
in 2 parts, we first accept this as being
within the zoning, yes.
within the zoning, and second, that we refuse it. And the reason given for refusal is pursuant to the instrument of delegation, and those referral responses that have been received from main roads.
Okay, good.
And
All right, thanks.
the city therefore says it must recommend that under those powers of delegation refuse this information.
Fine, that's great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay.
So I can actually speak to that then.
Yes.
Right, okay. First off, I want to start off with the problem I had with the presentation was that actually it just absolutely shed no light, any further light on the problems that potential problems associated with the site, and it is a unique site. It's a very unique site because it is it's going to be to service vehicles. It's not a shop. I mean, it would be great to have some shops along there for, because of the interface with the highway and whatever. And just for the amenity and the look of the place as well. But it's actually servicing motor vehicles, not people. So we're going to encourage more traffic into that tiny little road that actually doesn't even, I don't even know if it's really a road. It's more of an access way into the shopping centre. So we're all familiar with sort of minor access ways into shopping centres. They're not built for, a lot of traffic. And I was, like I say, I was only there just this week, so I know I parked where that service station is supposed to go to be. So I know it really well, and I also know that from that particular corner there on Brockman and Grayson Hall, if you want to get into the shopping centre, you go up to the shopping centre, and there's a pedestrian way and there's a sort of connection with Brockman at the end up to Lloyd Street, and that's just completely full of people. I mean, it's not a safe access way for this petrol station. So it looks like, and then also at the top of Brockman is you can't turn left. So there's no way to go further down behind the car park there. So what I want to say is that this is all this traffic is going to be have to egress and access on Brockman, which is a tiny little shopping centre access. It's a minor access. So the uniqueness about this, furthermore, is that it's within 50 metres. I'm pretty sure it's within 50 metres of really busy intersection that actually I do believe is pretty much verging on a fail. It's within 50 metres of it. It's within the shopping centre site. And I don't know, there's only one other shopping centre that I know of that has a similar kind of setup, and that is down at Morrison Road in Midvale. And we're talking about a completely different shopping centre because that's a minor shopping centre there. And it's also the entrance into the shopping centre through that minor road there into the service station is about 100 metres from the intersection with Morrison Road and Reid Highway.
Could I bring you back to this particular application?
Well, what I want to explain to you is that gets incredibly congested there. What I want to say is absolutely, I don't understand how the proponents even think this is feasible. And it's just obviously they've got an idea there that they want to go with, but this is a pretty experimental. I can't see that it's actually going to be long-term viable in that area. And I mean, I can see why main roads do have an issue with it. It's really not going to be good for traffic flow on a Great Eastern Highway, and that is going to impact on Midland. That's going to impact on the amenity of the whole shopping centre area. It's just, I know there's other service stations on Great Eastern Highway, but not in this particular kind of unique situation. So I didn't think that was properly addressed. I would have liked it to have been addressed, but it wasn't, and it was somehow broken down into two separate parts. It's not actually two separate parts because those conditions are both there on that site. Basically, it's in a very built-up shopping centre that already doesn't have quite enough parking. And, you know, it's a tiny little road in and out. There's it's very difficult to cross across two lanes of traffic there. Traffic going in to access the service station still have to come out on Brockman Road onto Great Eastern Highway. I mean, Great Eastern Highway, 50 metres from the lights.
Thank you very much, Councillor Catalano. Other speakers for or against this motion to refuse? Member Arias.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I will be speaking against the current motion. Let me start by saying that there is no legislative restriction to DAP in approving this application, and I think that's an important consideration. I'd like to talk about the planning merit of the application, and it's quite clear through the RAR that the city officers believe that the service station in this context is appropriate. It's part of the strategic planning that's been done for the site or for the area. Also that from a design perspective, it would seem that the city officers are very supportive with the design elements of this shopping centre. A service station within a regional centre is appropriate. It's about providing that service that is essential to the community. In the same way, retail, cafes, all those things are essential for a community. The issues about traffic management, and I want to be clear about the issues that have been raised. The Main Roads Department, in their submissions that I have reviewed, don't raise any issue in relation to normal vehicle traffic or congestion on the roads, nor have the city's officers. The issue seems to be around pedestrian safety, even though in my mind that's been addressed and there's perhaps some confusion about earlier proposals. So the issue is simply around access from the west into Brockman Road and whether the swept path is appropriate. To me, that seems to be the issue. Now, the city's officers are satisfied that this application could be approved subject to condition 18. Now, the applicant doesn't favour that, and I have some support for that, given the current arrangement allows large vehicles, as of right, to turn into that road and not be lane correct. So that exists right now. So I find it difficult to provide a sound basis for opposing this development, and I will foreshadow moving an alternative motion.
Thank you, Member Arias. Member Cabinet, would you like to speak to the motion? Okay, thank you. I will speak to this motion. I do not support the refusal. I cannot find any fundamental reasons presented in the RAR as prepared by the government officers or on my review of the information presented to actually refuse the application. The refusal presented by the local government, which they themselves do not support the opinion of the public authority, that being Main Roads, is purely on a technicality under the instrument of delegation, that they are obliged under that instrument to recommend refusal where they do not agree with Main Roads. And by that nature, they have sought to find an alternate way to deal with the issue that Main Roads has presented. That's something for further discussion should an alternate come to light. But I must say that Main Roads had this proposal referred to them twice, and it was only on the latter occasion, on the 4th of December, that they responded with their lack of support, and their response to me is unclear. I'm not sure what they mean when referring to a TIA being uncertain. They suggested that the access and egress may be unsafe. They've also suggested that there are health and safety issues, inappropriate manoeuvring, loading and unloading arrangements and parking, which may cause risk. However, when I look at those comments and compare that to the information received from the application and the technical documentation and some of the city's responses, I'm satisfied that this land use could adequately operate and be managed without causing impact on pedestrians and other vehicles. And I don't think it is either appropriate to refuse an application because of some assumptions about the future, whether there be or not larger and more frequent vehicle use, etc. We have no knowledge of this, and we're here to determine the application before us. I concur with Member Arias that the DAP is not bound by the instrument of delegation 2025-04, the powers of local government metropolitan region scheme, and therefore we as a DAP are not bound by Main Roads' lack of support, and should we see fit, we are able to support it. So for those reasons, I am not going to support the refusal. Councillor Henderson, as mover, you do have the right of reply and opportunity to close debate. Back to you.
Yes, thank you, and thank you everyone for your contribution. A few points to make. I think the first thing is that Brockman Road is actually an access way to a shopping centre with small traffic, not large traffic. That in the first instance raises the question of safety, and I think with the large vehicles being able to cross a road, being able to access a road and being able to consume all of the road does impact the safety aspect, particularly around pedestrians as well. And yes, we agree that they may well do their transport outside of normal hours, but we don't know what normal is, as I raised in the opening debate. The other aspect is that service stations indeed are an essential aspect of a community. And a planning consideration is that we do have to consider what those needs are, and there are already other service stations fulfilling those needs. So this one is not necessarily a consideration because there is a need. It's a consideration because it's a planning application. And there may not necessarily be a need, as I suggest. The other aspect is that I think the swept path aspects that we've discussed may well be within workable bounds for the 17.5 metre vehicle, but I'm not convinced longer term that the 17.5s will be fulfilling the role. It might be that the operator is all out of 17.5 vehicles and the station needs fuel, and they'll just send a 19. And we'll end up with ripped up and damaged curbing and the like, because it won't be seen at night unless we put up some security cameras. So if we want to talk about technicalities, lots of things fall apart because of technicalities, and I think this is just one of them. I don't believe when the vehicles exit Rockburn Road onto Great Eastern Highway heading east can do so on a highway in a safe manner, because they're required to literally to cover 2 lanes to be able to exit as it stands. So I think on the basis of it, I normally am pro-development. I just don't see that this one fulfills the needs or the safety aspects for the site, and particularly for the shoppers that use the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Debate is now closed. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in support of the refusal, show of hands, please. That is Member Henderson and Member Catalano. Those against, that's Member Kavanagh, Arias and Hyde. The motion is lost 2 to 3. I will therefore seek an alternate. Is there a mover, please, for an alternate? Member Arias moves the alternate. Can I assume that that is the alternate attached to the RAR recommendation to approve?
That's correct, presiding
Thank
member.
you. Is there a seconder, please, for that? Happy to second. Please speak to the motion, Member Arias.
Thank you, presiding member. As I alluded earlier, from a planning perspective, the proposed development as classified as a service station is a use that is capable of approval within the relevant zone. And that is subject to compliance with scheme requirements and objectives. The RAR indicates very clearly that in terms of general scheme compliance, it meets those, and it meets the objectives of the zone. So I think there's capability and matter being approved. I indicated earlier, I also believe from a context perspective, a service station is an appropriate use within a shopping centre precinct, regional, particularly within a regional centre. So I think from that perspective, it's appropriate. The officers in their assessment confirmed that the proposal is generally consistent with the planning framework. So when you wrap that up, from a planning perspective, it seems to be an appropriate use. Then sort of turning to probably the primary use, and that is traffic. I think on balance, it would seem that the officers and the RAR comes to the conclusion that whilst there may be traffic difficulties and congestion, I don't doubt that, but it's also recognition of probably the success of the Midland Regional Centre, and that success goes with some problems, and the problems are congestion. And as I said, I don't have doubt that there's congestions, and it will become more congested in the future. But that is part of a city centre, and I think there needs to be recognition that the context will change. Main roads and the city's officers haven't raised issues around traffic safety generally. It's been quite specific around the fuel tankers and particularly around the left movement from the west, although some concern was raised about turning right movements. But in reviewing the TIA, I'm satisfied that there's been a comprehensive analysis on a couple of occasions to address that issue. And on that basis, I'm satisfied that the issue of fuel tanker access and exit from the site has been appropriately addressed. So on that basis, I'm prepared to support the alternative motion. Presiding member, I would also like to move a motion to delete condition 18.
Amendment 1, condition 18 to be deleted. That's moved by Member Arias. Is there a seconder, please, for that motion? I'm happy to second that. Would you like to speak to that, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Firstly, I have concerns about the legality of imposing condition that is outside the application. It is something that the Supreme Court and the SAT have views on, and so I'm uncomfortable that the condition isn't valid from that perspective. From a planning perspective, I have doubts that it's necessary, it's warranted. And in discussions this morning, it would seem that it's recommended on the basis of a pleasing main roads, and yet I'm not satisfied that Main Roads has provided specific reasons why the current swept paths are unacceptable, whereas we've got we've got information in the TIA and the technical notes that, based on history, based on the site itself, it will work. So on that basis, I think I'd like to see condition 18 removed.
Thank you. As seconder, I will briefly speak to this amendment. I take the point that the city was initially satisfied with the TIA and the analysis, and didn't find any fatal flaw with it. They further reviewed it on response only of Main Roads comments, but still my understanding is did not see this as something which was necessarily a fatal flaw. I think we have heard on multiple occasions now that there is an as of right to make these manoeuvres within the current road formation, given the scale of the vehicles proposed. There are other conditions of this approval which tie this particular applicant to the scale of vehicle as proposed. Any change to that would require an amendment or would cause some trouble with administering that condition, and therefore likely fines and so forth. The distribution, the Sidra traffic distribution, seems to suggest that there is potential for this intersection without the need for further modification due to the direction of traffic movement and the numbers making certain turns. And I do believe as well that it goes beyond the responsibility of this particular applicant. And I think, again, that is acknowledged by the city in response to questions earlier, that there isn't as of right. There may well be other users of this intersection who are using it for that purpose, potentially with larger vehicles. And I think that if it is of the opinion of Main Roads that this particular intersection needs to be improved, widened, to come up to a standard that they determine to be appropriate, then that is a regional matter for Main Roads and potentially the local government. But I do not believe that there is a clear need and nexus for this particular application. And I think, therefore, the condition is fundamentally flawed, and I support its deletion. Other speakers on this amendment, for or against? Member Henderson. Thank you, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Just to make a point, it may well have been that staff considered it acceptable from Main Roads' perspective in the city in an earlier review, in an earlier matter. But when things get reviewed, more things come to light, and I think that's important as part of debate. It's part of the process. So in that respect, I do believe that condition 18 should be there to be able to sustain an argument around whether or not safety can be met for pedestrians and the like. So I really cannot support this amendment. I think 18 is an essential aspect of an approval to cover it off overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers for or against this amendment? If not, I will put this amendment to the vote. Those in favour of deletion of condition 18, please show of hands. That's Hyde, Arias and Cabernet. Those against? That's councillors Henderson and Catalano. The motion is carried 3-2. Still with you, Member Arias. Did you have anything further? You're comfortable to leave it there? Okay, thank you. I will now speak to the substantive as the seconder. I'm comfortable to approve this application. It is a discretionary use, but obviously it does, as the city officers have acknowledged, meet the objectives of the scheme. The activity centre structure plan and largely complies with the development standards of that structure plan. There's a small technical shortfall of 3 parking bays, but there is indeed the discretion under the scheme to approve that shortfall, and the detailed supply and demand assessment it demonstrates that the impact of this service station is of a minor nature when it looks at parking, and the impact of the overall centre is insignificant given the survey results which demonstrate those surpluses. The DRP has provided its support for the vast majority of those matters considered under SPP 7 and other matters relating to their comments on built form and scale and amenity really are directed towards their opinions on the land use. And I do agree with the city's assessment that these are not relevant as the planning framework clearly contemplates this use. Investigation of the waste management processes is okay. Notably, DWER did not object, but provided their conditional support and suitable conditions of approval. So I'm comfortable to support this. I would, however, suggest a further amendment, and that would be amendment 2, which to point 1 or part 1, which is drafted approved DAP application with reference accompanying plans, accordance with clause 68, etc., and the provisions of clause 10.3 of the City of Swan Local Planning Scheme number 17, I move to add the words "and under the Metropolitan Region Scheme, comma, and close, subject to the following conditions." That's moved by Member Hyde. Do I have a second? Thank you, Member Harris. I will just briefly speak to that. Given that this approval is not a dual approval as such, we need to include that reference to the Metropolitan Region Scheme. Remembering we're not bound by the delegation, we do not either require an RAR from the WAPC to proceed, but we should include that reference to the Metropolitan Region Scheme in making this decision. Member Arias?
No further comment, presiding member.
Any other speakers on amendment 2? If not, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of amendment 2? Thank you. That's 4 members. Those against? Against Councillor Catalano. That motion is carried 4-1. Those in favour were Hyde, Arias, Cabernet and Councillor Henderson. I've nothing further to say on the substantive. Other speakers for or against the substantive as amended? Member Cabernet, did you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Henderson, yes, please.
Only just to reiterate my objection from the previous debate and to put it on record that I don't support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano, did you wish to speak to the substantive motion as amended? No, thank you. Okay, I'll put this motion to the vote. Sorry. Yes, sorry, Member Arias wishes to close debate with right of reply.
Thank you. Just very quickly, presiding member, what I've indicated earlier that from a planning perspective, I think it's appropriate. So I won't go into the detail. Probably what I should have made reference to is that part of the reason for supporting the deletion of condition and supporting the application is recognition of condition 21, which provides for a delivery management plan, which is to the satisfaction of the city. And I think that it can be quite a restrictive document that ensures that the site is serviced at an appropriate time and reduces potential conflict. So that was another reason for believing and supporting this application. So with that, I'm happy to close debate.
Thank you. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of the approval as amended, and that's member Hyde, Arias and Cabernac. Those against, that's councillors Henderson and Catalano. The motion is carried 3-2. We thank the presenters for this item. We will now move to the next item, which is similarly for the City of Swan. Item 3.2, part lot 9503, Squadron Boulevard, Brook. Proposed community purpose. We have just one presenter for this, Nathan Mass from Planning Solutions, in support of the application. Nathan, 3 minutes to draw our attention to the key points, and then we'll open for questions.
Great. Thank you, presiding member. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. So good morning. My name is Nathan Mars, Senior Planner at Planning Solutions. I'm also joined by my colleague Mark, proponent Harpreet, and the project's architect Peter. Each will be available to answer questions following my presentation.
I just grab their full name. So it's Mark.
Mark Ree.
Yes, and Peter.
Peter Stacey.
Stacey. Thank you very much.
And Harpreet as well. There's 3. Harpreet.
Okay.
Harpreet Kalair.
Yeah.
No, thank you. And I'm speaking in support of the proposed ambulance depot within the emerging Kingsford Town Centre in Bullsbrook. Firstly, I'd like to thank the city's officers for their assessment of the application and recommendation for conditional approval. We worked collaboratively with the office throughout the assessment, which has largely been associated with design feedback, confirming operational matters, which have all been addressed. So I trust you have all received my presentation summary, which includes a single request for a condition deletion. Now, before I touch upon this, I'd like to walk through some of the key components of the proposal. So as outlined in the RA, the proposed development is entirely compliant with relevant planning requirements and is supported by a suite of technical reporting. This demonstrates the proposal is acceptable from a land use, built form, bushfire, acoustic and traffic perspectives. The development also enjoys the support of the city's design review panel, which concluded, and I quote, that the project has a bold yet restrained form and material which evokes the simplicity of the rural character and will be a notable asset for the community. To this effect, the development has been sympathetically designed to its surrounds, whilst balancing the needs and the security of the use. The built form and materiality referencing both the historic and contemporary nature of the locality, the development integrates into the town centre with extensive landscaping and a subtle fencing ensuring a soft transition into the public realm. The overall development configuration has been considered holistically to ensure internal operation and site functionality are maximised. This results in a safe and coordinated layout and access arrangements. Now, generally, developments of this nature prioritise function over form, with simple built form outcomes such as a shed. In this instance, however, the development has been demonstrated to be architecturally strong, whilst providing critical infrastructure for the growing community, ensuring the locality has sufficient and timely access to emergency services. Now, for these reasons, we kindly request that the panel support the proposed development. Now, as I outlined earlier, we support the officer's recommendation for approval, but do respectfully request the deletion of condition 4, which requires a statement of sustainability be provided prior to the lodgement of a building permit. Now, whilst we are supportive of the intent of this condition, we note that an extensive sustainability strategy was provided as part of the application package, and this was considered by the city's officers and the DRP. Now, this strategy already details the project's sustainability attributes, including the materiality, climate resilience, the design response, waste, renewable energy, and the operations. Now, as currently worded, condition 4 provides a shopping list of additional measures which are not referenced to any policy or scheme provision. There is no detail on how these measures listed differ from what we've already provided, and it is not clear what benefit or value the requested statement will provide over the extensive information we've already provided. So accordingly, it is considered that the condition is not warranted and is respectfully requested to be deleted. Now, in summary, the proposed depot has been designed in a site-responsive and contextual manner.
You're quite close to time now, so you can draw.
Finishing up this, and provide an essential community service for the locality. Development plans have been strengthened and refined over the assessment process in accordance with the city and DRP feedback with full support. Overall, we welcome and support the city's recommendation for approval. Respectfully request that approve the development with completion of condition 4. Thank you for your time today. Please answer any questions.
Thanks, Nathan. I'll refer to members on screen first for any questions they may have. Councillor Henderson, did you have questions of the applicant? Thank you. Councillor Catalano, did you have questions of the applicant? No. Members in the room, any questions of the applicant? Member Arias?
Yeah, thank you. Just in terms of your request around that condition, deletion of the condition 4, do you have any understanding why it's been imposed, given you've provided that strategy?
No. And unfortunately, we did request the some sort of guidance from the city and why they imposed the condition. Unfortunately, it didn't return to us before that meeting today. So no, unfortunately, I don't. Yeah.
So it wasn't a requirement of the DRP?
No. So yeah, we provided the sustainability strategy, which covers off.
But you know, nothing further.
Okay. I'm going to put this question to the city as well, but given that you have gone to the length of providing a sustainability strategy, would it be acceptable as a condition to reference that strategy for the purpose of construction and operations?
And that is standard, so.
I might put that to the city then when we get to that point. Thank you for that response. If there's no further questions of this applicant, we'll refer to the city officers. And again, I think we've got the same officers present, Darcy, Gabby and David. Did you wish to make any comment, or are you happy just to go to questions?
I'm happy to go to questions.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, did you have questions of your city officers? Councillor Catalano, any questions of city officers? Members in the room, questions of city?
Yeah, thank you, Presiding
Member Arias.
Just, do you have a comment in response to the applicant's submission and specifically the request to delete condition 4?
Yeah, so that was just an oversight of the city. We're happy to amend that condition to just say that the development is to be in accordance with the submitted sustainability strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you. I might just follow with that. Would the city think that therefore condition 4 might be replaced with wording along the lines of the sustainability strategy prepared by Full Circle Design Services and dated May 2025 is to be complied with for the duration of the construction and operation of the development? Would that sort of wording be okay? I think I can see you nodding, but you're very small on the screen, so.
Yeah, that's good. That's good wording.
All right, lovely. Thank you. I just had one other question. It hasn't been raised by the applicant, but would it be normal to apply the public art policy contribution to an ambulance depot?
I don't think the city's public art policy, I don't think it includes concessions for community services. So unfortunately, yeah, we are bound by that.
Okay, I did ask because I know some local governments do make those concessions, but thank you. I understand your response. If there are no further questions of the officers, then we will go to the item. And we have a responsible authority report recommendation to approve this, subject to a number of conditions and advice notes. So do I have a mover, please, for that as the primary recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Is that seconded? Member Arias seconds. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to this?
Briefly, thank you. I'm very pleased to see that this is coming to Bullsbrook. There's a need, and certainly it's a very rapidly growing area that needs not only these kinds of services, but others like policing, etc. In respect of the discussion around the condition 4, yes, condition 4, more than happy for someone to amend that. But overall, I'm happy with the discussion. I'm not happy at all about the imposition of the public art policy. I've been a solid, shall we say, pain in the neck on the cost of business and the cost of developments of these things. So not happy with that, but I'd be more than pleased that the DAP would say, well, we'd remove it if someone wants to go that way. But otherwise, very supportive of the application.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Henderson. Member Arias, the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, presiding member. From a zoning perspective, the proposed use is permitted, community purpose, and therefore it's capable of approval. The RAA indicates that it's consistent with the Kingsford structure plan and meets the objectives of general commercial zone, which I support. The design review panel is supportive of development, subject to a few conditions which are also recommended. The TIA concluded that the proposal is going to have a fairly low impact and the existing road system can accommodate the increase in traffic, which is also supported by the city's officers. The bushfire management plan also demonstrates that hazards can be appropriately managed, and the design has been based on strategic separation and setback to minimise impact. So on that basis, I think from a planning framework, it's appropriate. And also I think from a locational perspective, it's a very positive asset to the Bullsbrook community, and it's well located to access Great Northern Highway. So on that basis, prepared to support. Presiding member, I'm also prepared to move the deletion of condition 4 and replacement, but I'll need your assistance in terms of an alternative condition 4.
Yeah.
So it requires compliance with that statement of sustainability. So if you could perhaps read that out for the benefit of the other members.
Certainly. So moving to delete condition 4 by member Arias and replacing that wording with the following: the sustainability strategy prepared by Full Circle Design Services and dated May 2025 is to be complied with for the duration of the construction and operation of the development. That's moved by member Arias. Is there a seconder for that, please? Member Kavanagh, seconds. Would you like to speak to that amendment?
Thank you, presiding member. Very briefly, the applicants indicated willingness to accept a modified condition and compliance with that condition. City officers are happy with an amendment to the condition, so happy to support that.
Thank you. Member Kavanagh, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thank you. Yes, I think it's self-explanatory why we want to remove that point and replace it with some wording. So yeah, I just want to say I'm in support of that.
Thank you. Other speakers for or against amendment 1? If not, I will put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you. That's Hyde, Arias, Kavanagh and Henderson. Those against? Councillor Catalano. The motion is carried 4-1. Still with you, member Arias? Nothing more. Okay. Other speakers for or against the motion? The substantive motion? Did you wish to speak to the motion, member Kavanagh? Thank you. Okay. I will speak to the motion. I'm comfortable with this in the residential zone, noticing it has a commercial purpose and community use is a permissible use within that. I think as an emerging centre, this type of facility caters for the growth in the general facilities. I do note the DRP support. There are some variations to the design standards, but they are minor and acceptable. I also note that it satisfies the local development plans. So the city has also reviewed the TIA and the bushfire management plan and are satisfied with that. I would like to propose an amendment too, and that is to delete condition 28. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Condition 28 relates to the public art. That's seconded by Councillor Henderson. I'll just briefly speak to it. I do note that in response to questions, the city officers said that the policy per se does not discriminate between uses or suggest exemptions. However, as a policy and giving it due regard, we are not bound by that policy, rather take guidance from it. But I think in the context of this being a community purpose use and a much needed community purpose use, I think it is an imposition which does not need to be applied necessarily. I think there are plenty of other opportunities within the centre to apply this policy more fully and to reap the wider public art benefits from that. And therefore I propose for this purpose on merit to delete condition 28 relating to the need for public art. Councillor Henderson as seconder, would you like to speak to that motion?
Yes, thank you. And as you say, it is policy, it's not law. It's certainly within our bounds to be able to address that. But I will also say in doing so that the actual development of the site is of a high calibre. It's not like an ugly concrete building that you would get in an industrial area. And they're going to put some effort into actually making the site look good. So in that respect, I think it's justifiable to remove this condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers relating to this? Let's put this matter to the vote. Those in favour of deleting condition 28? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Councillor Catalano, I don't believe you've spoken to the substantive motion. Did you wish to? No. Okay. Councillor Henderson, that leaves us returning to you for right of reply and closure of debate, should you wish to.
Thank you. I had a freeze on the internet there for a moment. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Look, there's really not much more to add. What's been said has been mostly positive. So I'm happy to close debate. Thank you.
Thank you. I will put the motion to the vote as amended. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you to the presenters. We'll just have a few seconds while we get the presenters for item 3.3 back into the room. Do you need a wee break or anything? I propose a procedural motion just to have a 2 or 3 minute break, comfort stop, seconded by member Arias. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Catalano, are you available to resume the meeting? We'll just wait until Councillor Catalano appears back on our screens or has. Councillor Catalano, are you with us? There you are. Lovely. Thank you. Everybody's back together again. So we'll continue with the meeting. We are now at item 3.3 for lot 9001, Master Parade, Ellenbrook, for proposed commercial development. We have one presenter on this item, Ross Duckham from Hatch, in support of the application. Ross, you've been given 3 minutes to make your presentation when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'll trust that everyone has read the deputation text that was provided ahead of time. I won't go through it verbatim. I do want to open by saying, just addressing really condition 7 of the approval as proposed, as recommended, I should say. It's fair to say that the proponent's a little bit disappointed with the process and advice in Glovo for this process, particularly the way that the design review panel process worked, as has been expressed to me by officers. The design review panel went beyond their remit of qualitative advice and towards quantitative advice, which resulted in some design changes which were incorporated prior to lodgement. As a consequence, parking bays were lost in the name of additional landscaping, which was something that the DRP apparently should not have been proposing. The Ellenbrook parking strategy has a desirable rate of 4.3 bays per 100 square metres. We think effectively with these extended trading hours, which you can see in condition 4 as proposed, that the peak parking demand, which is of course what parking is to provide for, is flattened out a little bit with these extended hours, and therefore the peak capacity that needs to be provided for would be less than 4.3 bays per 100 square metres, and that the minimum, which is still a minimum, and there is flexibility to adhere to that minimum in the policy, would be an appropriate alternative. As a consequence of that, we think that condition 7 falls away as a requirement. I'm mindful of concerns that the department, that the city would consider this an undesirable precedent for a relatively new policy, but given there is flexibility within the policy, we don't think this would be going counter to the policy. It is exercising the flexibility that is within that policy. So our position would be that we could adhere to the 4 bays per 100 square metres being provided and have condition 6 altered accordingly, and as a consequence, condition 7 would not be required and would fall away. We recognise that medical centre will provide an important service to the Ellenbrook community, and that this impost, which did come literally the day before the RAR came out, raised as an issue, that is actually probably not an appropriate condition to apply in these circumstances, given these conditions. That was all that I wanted to share in my 3 minutes.
Very good. Thank you very much. I'll open for questions on of the presenter. Councillor Henderson, did you have questions of the presenter? No. Councillor Catalano, did you have questions of the presenter? No. Okay. Members in the room, questions of the presenter. Member Arias.
Perhaps just an expansion, your comment around the DRP advice and additional landscaping, which resulted in how many bays being lost?
Well, we changed it quite a bit to suit the DRP's requirements. So we could comfortably have had those bays in there with changes, but with the changes that were requested and as per the notes from the DRP, we could have accommodated those, but their desire was to reduce car bays and have more landscaping.
Okay. So you were involved in DRP meetings?
I was involved with the first one. I wasn't able to be there for the second one because I was interstate.
Okay. Now, presumably the city's officers were represented at the DRP?
Yes, they were.
So their view about landscaping versus car parking?
Well, the first we found out there was an issue with the parking was when this report came out a few days ago. Before that, the parking was never raised as an issue other than reduce car parking, get more landscaping in.
Okay.
I won't speak out of turn because I know we've got David here. But it was expressed to me that there was probably an opportunity for the officers in the room to actually pick up on DRP exercising a little bit of overreach, and that wasn't taken. David wasn't there at the time. It was a different officer apparently, but that's been expressed to me that they weren't probably guided in the right way around that landscaping question.
Yeah, okay. And to be clear, DRP don't have requirements to actually provide advice.
Yeah, that's right.
Advisory group. So can you put a number on the bays that were lost in those sort of design changes?
Look, not exactly. I know that when we did the numbers, given the net lettable area was 4,065, the number of bays that we actually did need was 175 bays, not 178. So that difference of 163 to 175, which is 12 bays, we can accommodate. It would chew up some of the landscaping, but there's also access points to neighbouring properties that the DRP wanted, so we put them in there, and we lost car bays as a result of that. So the 12 that we're short, we could accommodate, but it would be a change to the landscaping that the DRP was putting a fair bit. It felt like they wanted it, and we were, if that's what they want, then we were happy to accommodate that or try to accommodate that.
So there, yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, so in terms of the calculation, and it is a question I put to the city's officers, the calculation of car parking is based on the Ellenbrook parking strategy. Is that different to the scheme requirement?
No, I think it's effectively delegated to the car parking strategy. The distinction is there is a desirable level and there's a minimum level, and cash in lieu is calculated not on variance from the minimum, it's calculated on variance from the desirable, but also within that policy there is flexibility to consider on a case-by-case basis, as there should be for every policy, not a strict hard and fast, but some flexibility to consider things like hours of operation and peak demand as well. So.
Thank you.
Other questions? Member Cabinet, do you have questions? I did, but I just wanted to write another question down. I'll do that in a minute. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear, Ross. There is the Ellenbrook parking strategy, I agree with you, that contains the guidance on parking. And it has a desirable rate, which is 4.3 bays per 100 NLA metre squared. There's also the minimum on the same ratio of NLA, but for 4 bays. So there's a 0.3 bay difference. The calculations that the city has done is based on the desirable rate, and the calculations that you've done is based on the minimum rate. So the shortfall can vary whichever of those rates.
Yes.
I also note that in the RAR, the NLA is stated to be 4,150 metres squared, and yet I think there was a different NLA mentioned. Yes. So the difficulty arises with the DAP when we have that lack of certainty around exactly what we're dealing with. Is the NLA reasonably well fixed at this point, would you say, or is it still subject to some variation and therefore some flexibility might be required?
No, I think it's fixed. I think actually that's an error in the planning report that was submitted, that it was 4,150. I think it is in fact 4,065. It might even actually be on the plans. It admitted. So that's like a typographical error in there, which obviously we'll own, but the actual plans that you're being asked to approve shows 4,065.
I see. Okay.
That's what we're pushing through.
Okay. That's fine. And then in terms of the modification that you're proposing, you didn't necessarily provide us with any wording. But what I think you're suggesting is that your request is that parking bays must be provided at that minimum rate per 100 metres squared of NLA, but that you do accept that if you fall below that minimum rate, you would be subject to all of those clauses, et cetera, of the Swan's payment in lieu of parking plan.
Minimum rather than the desirable, yes.
Right, which is a question we have to ask the city whether there is that ability to do so. Okay, right. Let's just see if there's any more. No, I don't think I've got any more questions for you. If there's no other questions of the applicant, then we will return to the city officers. Did you wish to make any comments, David, or are you just happy to open for questions?
I'm happy to, I guess I would, first like to acknowledge Ross's comments around the design review panel's comments. They have, in this case, overstepped. Their primary function is to provide comments on the design of the proposal, not so much an assessment against the relative planning framework. So primarily they are to provide comments on the quality of the landscaping, not the quantity. So as Ross did point out, unfortunately, I wasn't an officer present at the initial design review panel meetings. So that was an oversight on our behalf. So.
Thanks, David. David, your sound is sort of coming in waves of loud and then very soft. I'm not quite sure why, but
is that any better?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, thank you for that introduction. I'll see if panel members have questions of you. Councillor Henderson, did you have questions of David? No. Councillor Catalano, any questions? No. Members in the room. Member Arias.
Thank you. Obviously, the applicant's suggesting that in determining the parking requirement, you apply minimum rather than desirable. In the strategy, is there criteria for which one of those two measures the council should be applying?
It is a little bit.
Oh, you've dropped back again. There we go. Get you back again.
Sorry, apologies. I'm not sure what's going on with the sound. It is a little bit convoluted and confusing to read, but essentially the Ellenbrook parking strategy, they undertook an independent assessment based on the expected generation of the land uses, the non-residential land uses. So the desirable parking rate is essentially the parking rate that needs to be provided based on the expected traffic generation, taking into consideration expected customers or visitors, and then also staff members. And the minimum parking rate is the minimum parking rate that needs to be provided. So when there is a shortfall, the strategy and the parking plan says that a cash in lieu payment needs to be provided, and the city can consider variations to the design. The variation can't be below.
Sorry, David, you just need to repeat that last sentence after you said the city can something, because you dropped out completely.
So we can consider variations to the desirable parking rate subject to a cash in lieu payment being made. but the variation can't be below the minimum parking rate.
Okay. Do
All
you
right.
have a follow-up, Member Arias?
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure I sort of understood what the criteria for applying the minimum. With most town planning schemes, the car parking requirement is the minimum requirement, and generally that's what's applied. So, and I don't understand the distinction between a minimum and a desirable.
Yeah, so I acknowledge that the policy is poorly written, but essentially it should be interpreted as the desirable parking rate is the parking rate that needs to be provided to suitably cater for the parking generation by the land use. And then if there is a variation proposed, we can accept that variation subject to a cash and lieu payment, but the variation can't be below the minimum requirement. Anything below the minimum will then place a significant undue impact on the parking within the regional centre.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for the clarification. It does seem like the policy might need a bit of work, but I asked the applicant about the town planning scheme. So what does the city's scheme actually require for a medical centre?
I'm not sure. Essentially, the Ellenbrook Town Centre parking strategy supersedes the city's standard parking policy. So it's unique to the Ellenbrook Town Centre in this case. Similar to when there's variations to parking requirements outlined in a structure plan, let's say, for example.
Okay, so if I understand that, the scheme refers back to the Ellenbrook parking strategy, is that correct?
I'm not sure if the scheme specifically references any particular parking policy per se. I'm not sure if it specifically says it has to be in accordance with the city's local planning policy. I think the assessment is just based on the criteria applicable to the particular application.
Okay.
So yeah, in this instance, the Ellenbrook Town Centre parking strategy it's unique and specific to development within the Ellenbrook strategic centre.
Okay, so just if maybe getting to some of the specifics, the applicants indicated that the city should apply the minimum because that's what the strategy says, and maybe paraphrasing what they've said in the presentation, because they've responded to the DRP and provided additional landscaping that provides justification for consideration of that minimum, and equally responding to the DRP shouldn't penalise the provision of additional parking. Do you have any comment about that?
The Ellenbrook Town Centre, again, we acknowledge the DRP comments and how the applicant has made changes to the landscaping in response to that, but the Ellenbrook Town Centre parking strategy doesn't list that as reasonable justification to a shortfall. So we acknowledge that they made changes to respond to those comments, but yeah, the parking strategy doesn't allow that as reasonable justification for a shortfall.
Okay. One further question,
Yes,
presiding member. So the policy doesn't provide that. Your scheme provides discretion in relation to parking standards?
Yes, but and as I said, in this instance, the Ellenbrook Strategic Centre is unique and it's already under significant pressure for parking, hence why the Ellenbrook Town Centre parking strategy was created, and also the cash and lieu parking plan. So that was to accommodate the current and future burden on the city's public parking arrangements. So, yeah, I guess that's, yeah, the scheme doesn't specifically list that as something to be considered.
Okay. But I think it just, the scheme provides a general discretion. I think that's what you've said.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did you have any questions, Member Cabinet? Okay, I've got some questions. David, sorry to pursue this with you, but it does present a fairly unusual situation for us where there's a desirable and then a minimum. Ordinarily, where there is a minimum and you fall below the minimum, that's when cash in lieu would be triggered. I understand you're saying it's slightly different, but this is a policy, this parking strategy is a policy, so presumably there's some discretion to apply cash in lieu at the minimum rate and not strictly specifically below the desirable rate. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, so the parking strategy is to be read in conjunction with the town centre payment in lieu plan, and so that specifies that any development within the Ellenbrook town centre area, so a payment in lieu of parking contribution will be required when parking is provided at less than the desirable rate. So yeah, in this instance, it's less than the desirable rate. So then it is expected to create place burden on the city's public parking facilities.
I don't have that parking plan in front of me. I think the applicant wanted to make a response.
If I may, thank you, presiding member. I just
don't want to get into a debate.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to point out our written deputation did quote that relevant provision, and it actually says payment in lieu of parking may be applied to any reduction in supply below the desirable rate. That's on page 5 of the parking plan.
May be applied. Okay, that's on page 5 of your submission too.
No, sorry, it's page 5 of the parking strategy itself.
Oh, okay, I don't have that in front of me. So it may be payment in cash in lieu may be applied to.
It's page 5 of the payment in lieu parking plan, not the parking strategy. Apologies.
David, would you agree? Do you have the parking plan in front of you? Do you agree with that it's not a categoric, you only apply it below the desirable, but you may apply it? I've lost your sound, David.
Sorry, yeah, I guess in response to that, page 30 of the Ellenbrook Town Centre parking strategy, it could be an error, I guess, between the throughout the document, but it says cash in lieu will be permitted for non-residential parking at the discretion of the city. Cash in lieu of parking will be required where the on-site parking proposed falls below the desirable level.
Okay. In your conclusion in the RAR, and let's not at this point trouble too much about the exact figure, but your statement is there is a shortfall of 15 parking bays that will require a cash in lieu payment as a condition of approval. However, there is sufficient public parking around the site at this time to accommodate the development. Probably need you to clarify that, because again, ordinarily cash in lieu, whilst it would normally be applied to a minimum, it would actually be replacing parking that couldn't be provided, or if there was insufficient public parking. So I'm a bit confused by that statement in the RAR as to,
what page of the RAR?
Yeah, depends whether it's your report or it's page 10 of your report, and it's page 513 of the consolidated RAR. It's page 10 of your report.
That may be an error on the city's behalf.
Sorry for laughing, but honestly, David, there's a lot of, there may be errors statements coming through. So it's hard for the DAP to be clear when there are numerous errors in policy and RARs, but I'm just reading what has been provided here. So are you disputing now that there is sufficient public parking around the site at this point?
Yes.
Does the city, in its analysis of through this strategy, look at the matter of reciprocity and shared trips?
Based on more with regards to specifically the medical centre use, it's considered largely that, I guess, people that are attending medical centres in some cases are burdened by physical injuries, or so it's likely to generate a larger parking demand than other uses. So it's likely that more people are going to be driving to the site individually than shared arrangements.
Okay, so if there's a shortfall of parking anyway, people would have to park elsewhere, wouldn't they? I mean, it's near an Aldi. There are a number of other uses growing up around the town centre. Quite normally, people would be looking to a town centre plan to have a level of reciprocity of quite a few percent. I'm just trying to understand the desirable versus the minimum in that context.
I guess there's not really much more I can add. The document was prepared at a strategic level. So yeah, there's really, in terms of the definition around the desirable and minimum parking rate, yeah, there's not really much more I can add.
Right. Okay. In the context of the applicant's comments about amending condition 7 and condition 6, at the moment, condition 6 is quite specific because it talks about 163 parking bays on site, and then there's a calculation of 15 parking bays for the cash in lieu. But I think if correct me if I'm not wrong, but did the city not use a figure of NLA of 4,150 square metres? The applicant's saying there's 4,065 now. So each square metre, yeah.
Sorry, that was off the built area annotated on, it's the proposed site plan drawing 8005, revision B.
Right. I'm just wondering how specific these conditions or this condition needs to be, because then that ties you down to a particular number of parking bays rather than applying a ratio to the plans. But things can change, can they not, between planning and then building and then occupation, and this condition, or both conditions at the moment, relate to occupancy. And yet they're very specific about the number of parking bays and very specific about the calculation of payment and the number of shortfall bays.
So sorry, what is your question in regards? So
my question is whether there can be more flexibility in these two conditions, or this, a reworded condition, because they're so specific at the moment, and we seem to have differences of opinion about what the amount of net lettable area is.
Yeah, so the pride so condition 6 is a standard condition that we apply on all approvals. So that we require them to provide the number of bays annotated on the provided development plans, which in this case is 163. And so the city were willing to accept that shortfall, subject to the payment of the cash in lieu payment for the 15 car bay shortfall. In regards to the net leasable area used for that calculation, so as I said, that was based on the built area depicted on the site plan drawing number 8005. And in terms of variation between now and building permit stage, in the event there is a variation, it would then be expected that a Form 2 amendment would be lodged to address that, the variations between the provision of parking.
Which seems a laboured way to go. I suppose my point is that condition 6 does talk about 163 car parking bays being provided. The applicant in their presentation has said they're prepared to provide more parking bays. It would come potentially at the loss of landscape. So tying them down to 163 bays when they might be able to provide 165 or 170, you know, there might be a gain in parking numbers, obviously at the loss of landscape. So that's why I'm saying, do we need to be that specific at this point?
No, but if there's no condition around the requirement of parking bays, then whilst the applicant would then also be able to add additional bays, if they removed additional bays, then there's no condition. If there's no condition around the minimum number of bays that they need to provide, then they could essentially either increase or decrease before the building permit stage.
The language, David, might be more related to providing the minimum number of parking bays per 100 square metre NLA metres squared. That's a ratio, which then, you know, when you've got your final plans, then you're applying your parking rate at that point.
Yeah, that would be a suitable alternative condition.
Yeah. The issue then becomes applying the cash in lieu at that minimum rate as opposed to the desirable rate.
Sorry, so if they wanted to then increase the number of bays prior to a building permit, as you said, we could put a condition on there around something along the lines of the plans need to be amended to depict the desirable number of parking spaces as outlined in the Ellenbrook Town Centre parking strategy.
Then we're back to the desirable as opposed to the minimum. Okay.
Member
Arias.
And David, sorry to harp on this, just confirmation of numbers, and you may not agree with what the outcome should be, but if you were to apply the minimum under the parking strategy, the applicant would have to provide 160 bays. Do you agree with that calculation?
Yes, yeah. Well, 163, I believe.
It's like
I believe they've provided the minimum.
Okay, so if they provide the minimum.
So the 163 bays at the moment, I believe, is based off the minimum. So they meet the minimum, but not the desirable.
Okay, no, thank you. So I just wanted to have that figure because we've been talking about, there's been some dispute around what the actual floor space is. So based on their plans, 163 meets the minimum, not the desirable, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
all right. Are there any further questions of the officers before we move ahead? If not, let's refer to the responsible authority report, which recommends that we approve this subject to a number of conditions. Do I have a mover, please, for that in the first instance? I'm happy to move.
No,
You're happy to move.
I'll
Member
preside
Arias
over,
is
yes.
happy to move. Is there a seconder? Councillor Henderson is seconding. Thank you. Member Arias, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, presiding member. In terms of the zoning, the medical centres are permitted use and therefore capable of approval and probably what reflects an intended use for the location. The site's within the Ellenbrook Town Centre and surrounded by mixed-use commercial development, and therefore it's an appropriate context for the medical centre. In terms of traffic management, the TIA concludes that the additional traffic likely to be generated can be accommodated within the existing road network, and that's supported by the city's officers. The RAR also concludes that the development generally complies with development standards and requirements of the scheme, and the proposal supported by the design review panel, subject to a number of conditions. So on that basis, prepare to support it. I will move a motion to just let me call it up, bear with me. To delete condition 7, which is a requirement for cash in lieu.
Just that?
Yes.
Okay, is there a seconder, please, for that? Councillor Henderson, thank you, seconding that. Would you like to speak to that, Member Arias?
Thank you, presiding member. I acknowledge that the RAR attempts to provide justification for the additional car parking phase to the extent that generates the need for condition 7. It is somewhat confusing that within that strategy, there is a minimum and a desirable requirement, and yet no clear strategy, or none that's been enunciated to the panel today, which sets out the criteria for when the city should apply a minimum and when the city should apply desirable. Historically, when the panel has considered car parking, is based on town planning scheme requirements and its requirement, and generally it's a minimum requirement, and that's what's applied. And I don't see any basis for going beyond what is commonly accepted as a minimum requirement, particularly when we've heard today that there has been additional car parking proposed, but as a result of trying to achieve other amenity considerations, car parking has been removed, and we're talking about providing additional landscaping on the site, which is a good outcome, but I don't see why the applicant should be penalised to such a significant degree by having to provide potentially additional bays or the cash in lieu, which is what condition 7 requires. So I believe the 163 bays that are provided under condition 6 meet the strategy requirements, and condition 7 is unnecessary and not warranted.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, as seconder, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Yes, thank you. I couldn't agree more. It goes a bit along the lines of you can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess. I have to say that many of the things I see from the DRP, I don't agree with. I believe they overstepped the mark with their advice, and specifically advice. But the applicant has said, yes, okay, we'll take that advice and put in the extra landscaping, which is fine. We need a bit more greenery. But to address the issue of the shortfall, this particular site is on the very eastern edge of the commercial centre, so it won't have a significant demand from elsewhere. In fact, if anything, as you suggest, there may be some overflow if necessary into the Aldi, which is often, when I go there, empty or not many cars. So to delete this, I think there's a justifiable balance between what DRP has asked for and what the minimum requirement is, and I think we meet that adequately. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers for or against this amending motion? Councillor Catalano, did you wish to speak to the amendment? Member Cabinet, did you wish to speak to the amendment? I will briefly speak to the amendment. I'm comfortable to support it. I think what we have here is a balance between providing the minimum amount of parking and therefore complying, if you will, or meeting the guidance of the parking strategy versus applying a higher level of landscape, which I think is commendable and appropriate for the town centre, and particularly in this potentially almost gateway position. I think obviously the cash in lieu may be applied. I think we take on this occasion and in its context and the merits of the application not to apply that. And so through this condition, we stipulate the number of parking bays, which seems to meet the agreed amount of net lettable area, and to leave it at that with no further claims. So that said, refer back to Member Arias on the amendment.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Look, and it's not a matter of ignoring the town planning scheme. The words and conditions say refer to where car parking bays have not been provided on site. Now, my view is that applying the minimum means that it does comply, and therefore the cash in lieu requirement's unnecessary and unreasonable.
Thank you. Let's put amendment 1 to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 4-1 with Councillor Catalano against. It's still with you, Member Arias, on the substantive.
Presiding Member, I don't have.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Henderson is seconded to the substantive. Did you wish to speak to the motion?
Only to say that it's a development that's needed in the area, being on the outer edge of the commercial part of Ellenbrook Centre. It's well positioned in that regard, so you won't have a lot of what I call foot traffic. It'll be people coming and going as they need. I think the justification for it is established, and more than happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers for or against the substantive motion? Councillor Catalano, did you wish to speak to this one? Member Cabinet, did you wish to speak to this one?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. Look, I think the proposal is appropriate in scale, use and form for this town centre context, and will contribute to local service and employment as well. The build form and the landscaping outcomes reflect feedback received, which is great. But we obviously had this issue with the number of car parking bases here, which hopefully we resolved. So yeah, I just want to say that I support this this application.
Thank you. I've no further comments. I just reflect those that other members have provided. So as mover, back to you to close debate, Member Arias.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member, and I will be brief. I think from a planning perspective, it's an appropriate use and appropriate location in Ellenbrook Town Centre. There's been a lot of discussion about the parking strategy, and I think an acknowledgement from the city's officers that perhaps it's a difficult document to work through, and might encourage that it might be timely for some reconsideration of some aspects of that, so that city officers have better clarity in its interpretation. So on that basis, happy to support the motion to approve the application.
Thank you. I will put this now to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Member Catalano against. The motion is carried 4-1. Just quickly then to close out on our agenda today. Nothing Form 2, nothing for SAT reconsiderations. Current SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals are available on that website. And with that, I thank our elected members, Councillor Catalano and Councillor Henderson, for attending, panel members in the room, presenters, officers from the City of Swan and the DAP Secretariat. I wish everybody a peaceful break coming forward and look forward to seeing you all in 2026, if not before. Close the meeting at 12:03. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson, and to you.
Thank you all.